Now, this is my great pleasure to invite Dr. Shobhana Patnaik, who is the Union Secretary to Government of India, and we are very much pleased to have you, sir. And we would like to invite you, please, to give the inspirational address to the conference. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Shobhana Patnaik, sir, please.
Good evening, Dr. Rob Bertram, Chief Scientist, Bureau of Food Security of USAID, United States of America. Monsieur Francois Tardieu, the Inter-Drought Chair from Montpellier. Dr. J.S. Sandhu, the Inter-Drought Vice Chair and the Deputy Director General of Indian Council of Agricultural Research. Dr. David Virginson, the DG of ICRISAT. Dr. Rajiv Varshnaya, the Conference Organizing Chair and the Head of Genetic Gains Department of ICRISAT, Dr. Paroda, Dr. Gurubachan Singh, Dr. William Dar, former DG, Dr. Swapan Datta, all the eminent scientists, galaxy of eminent scientists from across the globe, distinguished delegates from different countries belonging to 350 organizations, 55 countries. In fact, it is indeed a great pleasure for me to be participating in this important Inter-Drought Conference, which has been organized in India by the prestigious ICRISAT Institute at Hyderabad. In fact, I salute the founders of this conference, and among them is Mr. Tubroza, whom I did not address, but I would like to specially thank you for organizing this in Rome last, and then we have it nowadays every 4 years. So, and of course, you would have seen the DNA strand, which we have read Watson and Crick in a vertical mode, but here it is a horizontal mode. So that signifies a lot. That shows that DNA, which was only understood by the scientists, is now understood well by farmers. That's all. To give a brief background, Dr. Sandhu has already explained the peculiar condition of Indian agriculture, but still then belonging to Government of India, I'd like to put across the state of affairs of Indian agriculture and what is that we are doing for tackling drought and the whole lot of different measures which we are taking as policy planners of this country. We all know that agriculture and allied sector continues to be pivotal to the sustainable growth and development of any developing country's economy. In India, agriculture meets the food and nutritional requirements of 1.3 billion Indians. It contributes significantly to production, employment, and demand generation to various backward and forward linkages. It holds a share of 16% of the gross domestic product and employs, as Dr. Sandhu says, close to 48% of our population. The nation has a total cultivable area of 194 million hectares, of which the net sown area is 140 million hectares. It is one of the highest arable land extent in the world, next only to the United States of America. However, the country's agriculture faces certain challenges. Water, one of the critical inputs in a biological production system, is our weakness with a very low per capita availability. With 2/3 of its cultivated land being rain-fed, the nation faces substantive challenges in effective management of the available water. The intensity of challenges is getting sharper with visible problems like degrading natural resource base, progressive fragmentation of land holdings, impact of climate change, and increasing pressure on our water resources. Climate change is now a reality, and its multiple manifestation in the form of obvious changes in the climate variables have come to be accepted by one and all. The world is one on this acceptance, as seen from the Paris Agreement, which has been signed by 191 countries to date. Agriculture is largely climate dependent. It can be sustained if and only if the atmosphere provides optimum temperature bands and timely precipitation to nurture plant growth. The adverse impacts of climate changes can therefore be devastating for agriculture if and disproportionately affecting the poor. The rise in temperature would affect tropical countries like India much more, as these are already on the higher end of the temperature band. It is in this context that the prediction of climate change take on special significance for agriculture in our country. Recent studies at the Indian Council for Agricultural Research has indicated the possibility loss of 4 to 5 million tons in wheat production with every 1 degree rise in temperature throughout the growing period. Its impact can be felt on other crops as well. Climate change is also predicted to lead to boundary changes in areas suitable for growing certain crops. Reduction in yields as a result of climate change is predicted to be more pronounced for rain-fed crops. Due to climatic variations, the hydrological cycle is predicted to be more intense with higher annual average rainfall as well as increased drought. Drought is a sporadic feature of climate known to occur under all climatic regimes and usually characterized by variability in terms of its spatial expanse. Conditions of drought appear primarily, though not solely, on account of substantial rainfall deviation from the normal and or the skewed nature of the spatial and temporal distribution to a degree that inflicts an adverse impact on crops over an agricultural season or successive season. So far as India is concerned, 73% of the rainfall is received during the southwest monsoon period, whereas coastal areas of peninsular India, including Tamil Nadu, receive bulk of the rainfall from the receding southwest monsoon, periodic cyclonic disturbances, and the northeast monsoon. Of late, development of El Nino southern oscillation is responsible for major droughts in India between 1987 and 2015. Dr. Sandhu did mention about the drought period of 2002, but I can say that during this period in 1967, 2002, 2009, and of late 2014 and 15, we have witnessed drought in an unprecedented scale. The rainfall deficiency has been ranging from -12 to -22% of the country as a whole. Since the window of receiving monsoon or rainfall is relatively a very short one, say 100 days, any aberrations triggered by the climatic factors can therefore lead to creation of drought-like conditions. But having seen this all these years, it is not that the Ministry of Agriculture has been sitting quietly in Delhi. We, with the collaboration with the state government, we have drawn up what is called a crisis management framework to identify phases of the crisis and the strategic response corresponding to each such phase. The plan is drawn up, which provides for a strategic activity planner to act as a ready reckoner for critical steps that need to be taken in different times of the year with respect to drought preparedness, drought reporting, and drought response. In fact, the ministry has been responsible to devise a drought manual, which itself incorporates the various scientific formulas to determine drought. All these years, drought was seen as failure of monsoon. But it is just not the failure of monsoon or reduction of rainfall. A whole range of new parameters have been identified by the various scientists, and we have incorporated this in our drought manual for any state to declare that they are suffering from drought. And that includes NDVI and so many other coefficients. However, sustainable agricultural production has been our key focus to minimize the risk of climate change. The national strategy therefore focuses on sustaining agricultural growth to meet the increasing food demands of the growing population and to add to the economic growth of the nation. We have recognized the thrust areas that should guide our policy framework and programmatic and schematic intervention, and these include enhancing the agricultural vegetation that helps in mitigating global warming by absorbing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere as a part of its process of photosynthesis. Minimize the adverse impact of extreme weather events by developing contingency crop plans based on models that take into account projected climatic conditions across 126 agroecological zones of the country. Alignments of cropping system suitable to the agroclimatic conditions so that overexploitation of resources is avoided. Conservation agricultural practices for sustainable use of natural resources and improving productivity of rain-fed and degraded lands, especially wastelands. Promote water use efficiency and efficient on-farm water management to not only save water but also reduce emission. Minimize wastages and adopt recycling of water, rainwater harvesting, water resource planning conducive to agricultural zones of the country. This year, we are going to embark a program where we want to sensitize all the people at the Gram Panchayat level, the lowest unit of development, so that the Panchayat is aware about the how do you calculate the water demand and how you can use it more efficiently. Thrust on integrated nutrient and pest management to maintain soil health and sustain the productivity of land. To promote balanced use of fertilizer and increase use of organic manures based on soil nutrient analysis. So far as balanced use of fertilizer is concerned, in India, we have a very adverse NPK ratio. The use of nitrogenous fertilizer in the soil is so much that we need to balance it. And for that, the government has introduced a scheme in which all the nitrogenous fertilizer, urea, whether it is imported or it is produced within the country, to coat it with neem. This is called neem coated urea. By this, what happens? The urea is stable and there is a slow release of it to the soil. Thereby, the intake is much better and there is a consequent reduction in the quantum of fertilizer being used. We want to encourage precision farming through farm mechanization, micro irrigation, and zero tillage, which was discussed in the earlier session. And we want to go in a very big way for information support and agricultural extension system by deploying ICT. Digital Agriculture Initiative, which is so dear to the Director General of ICRISAT, is being launched in a very big way in this country. And in Digital Agriculture Initiative, three things are very important. Access to credit, and that is today possible in India because many people, close to 1 billion people, do have mobile phones, out of which 226 million have smartphones, and close to 1 crore, that is 10 million people, that is farmers, have access to smartphones. It's just the beginning. But the government has introduced an app in which you can directly access the bank through the mobile phone. It's just like any other mobile banking. So you can get access to credit. You can also get access to information. As you all know, there are so many apps. We are still in the process of developing it. ICRISAT has developed one with Microsoft on sowing. I think that has been released for Andhra Pradesh. So there are many different apps. So it will provide the right information on how to sow, when to water, which is the variety most suitable, what is the IPM and INM measures to be taken, and so on. And last but not least, access to market. The farmer has to take it to the market to get a better price. And for that, we have launched what is called the National Agricultural Market, which is an electronic platform in which farmers can trade on the electronic platform. But of course, it needs internet. Some of you may ask me, it needs internet. Yes, but in this country, the internet penetration is quite deep. We are aggressively moving ahead, but where there is no power, the solar powered VSATs are there, and it's possible to also get access to internet in the remote corners of the country. In fact, the traditional brick and mortar banks is no more going to be there. in the rural countryside. It will be through the smartphone that you can access your finance. And this has been possible in Kenya also. I think there has been examples galore from different parts of the world, but India is also marching ahead. And I think equipped with this sort of technology, we can definitely conquer the drought and also attempt to uh, 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 attempt to make ourselves climate smart. Apart from this, we have launched many different schemes in the government. It may sound a little repetitive to some of you who have attended the earlier session, but we have launched a massive program on soil health card. This card aims at providing the farmer with soil sample based nutrient analysis and the recommendation of fertilizer so that we can, and the soil ameliorants. Organic farming, particularly in rain-fed and hilly areas, has been brought in to build resilience against situations of inadequacy of rainfall and soil moisture. Two different schemes have been specifically launched in this country to address organic farming. As you all know, the average farm size in India is 1.15 hectares. And in fact, the marginal farmers account for 65% of the total farm force, holding very small pieces of land. We therefore believe that in order to make, some of you may think that such small holdings, they may not be productive. There are two schools of thought. One says the smallholder farms are highly productive. Another school of thought says, no, it's not so productive. There's a need to aggregate. In fact, for this reason, as one of the gentlemen was just mentioning in the earlier session, there is a need for security of tenure. At the same time, we need to aggregate them. So we have come out with a land leasing policy in India so that small farmers can group together, and this leased land can then be taken by anyone who wants to adopt agriculture in the most modern way using technology. We are also giving importance to the farmer producer organization. A farmer producer organization is a group of small and marginal farmers who group together where technology, managerial assistance, access to marketing, access to good inputs is all provided by the technical wing of it, and the farmer just tills the soil and also he shares the profit when the produce is sold. So an attempt has been made to accelerate, motivate the farmers into farmer producer organization, and will be going ahead in this direction in a very big way. Dr. Sandhu did mention that because of the efforts of the government, we are going to have a bumper production in the current year. Green Revolution met success in India, and that's well known, and that's more well known in the African countries, because whenever I meet some scientists and people from Africa, they say, how is it that India could really do Green Revolution? But of course, it is an achievement of the past. We need to focus more on how do we face the new challenges in agriculture. So this year, we are going to reach a new high in agriculture production in the country, 272 million tons of food grains. And at the same time, we did have a challenge in importing, in being the largest importer of pulses in the world. Today, India has a peculiar position. We are the largest producer of pulses, we are the largest importer of pulses, and we are the largest consumer of pulses. And last year only, we had imported 5.5 million tons of pulses from different countries in the world, coming from Canada, most of it. David is here, and also from other countries, Australia, and so many other countries. But this year, due to the combined efforts of the scientists, of the development administrators, and last but not least, the farmers, we had raised our production in a single year by 5 million tons. And we are going to touch the figure of 22 million tons of pulse production in just 1 year. This shows that if we are together, we can win the situation. And that calls for a platform where we need to come together, share our knowledge, and so that we instill the confidence in the farmer to see that he can really do it. And nothing much has changed except that we did have a good monsoon. That is a different thing. But monsoons, we also witnessed good monsoon even in the past. But why is it that we did not have pulse production? So that calls for dedicated planning. I must compliment ICRISAT for that. They have come out with many good varieties, and especially in pigeon pea, they have come out with a hybrid which has been multiplied now in 5 states. We have increased the number of seed hubs in the rural areas. We are trying to multiply them and reach it out to the farmers. And I think today we did discuss how do we get the best variety which is stress tolerant, which can withstand not only but which can withstand drought and which can give a higher productivity. These things may be looking like science fiction in the past, not anymore. Rajiv, who is now the head of the genetic gains, and all many of you who are present here, and particularly such scientists who have spoken about a horizontal DNA, they feel plant breeding is the answer. And it is true, it is the answer. We need to use genomics, gene editing, and CRISPR, and all these new technology which is there, and that will catapult the production to new levels in the days to come. And I'm certain all must make concerted efforts in this direction. One area which comes to mind is when we discuss about some of this new technology, we need to look for these traits in some of the existing varieties, I would say the species. Now, this was told in the presentation by our president of the session, Mr. Francois. He did mention that what is it which is there in the cactus, which is not there in, let's say, wheat. So that particular trait we need to bring. And in the morning session, Dr. Gurbachan Singh said, there's a wonder solution. There is a species called Prosopis juliflora. It grows like wildfire, and it's so green, and and it needs very little water. So why don't we take this trait from this species and put it in the crops that we want to grow? Perhaps with very little water, it can grow. So that is the challenge, and I'm certain that is possible with the type of research that is being carried out in different parts of the world, but we need to share this technology with each other. We need to ensure that this technology is not so unaffordable that the farmer cannot pay the price. If the farmer cannot get affordable technology, then it will be unsuccessful. You may have the best of technology, it does not matter, but it should be affordable, and it should be replicable, and it should be easily available. Then only we can witness a sea change in the days to come. We all know we have a challenge, the Sustainable Development Goals in 2030. Goal number 2, to eliminate hunger, is still continues to challenge us, not only in India and the Southeast Asian countries, but also in Africa. I know Latin America has addressed this issue in a very big way, but still the challenge which remains need to be addressed, and in this direction we must all move. I don't want to take much of your time. I'm very happy that I could share a little bit of work that we are doing, and I must compliment our Indian Council of Agricultural Research. In this city of Hyderabad, we have an organization called CRIDA, and they are steering a program called National Innovations on Climate Resilient Agriculture. And due to their efforts, they have brought out the district level climate vulnerability atlas in case of 619 districts spread across 28 states to undertake location specific adaptation activities. In fact, they are going to come out with a model village where everyone, that entire village is drought proofed permanently. And that's a new model. We need to first make it successful in a small area and scale it up for the entire country. And I continue to say that I did begin with the critical role of water, but before I end, I would like to share with you the priority the government has given to utilization of water in an efficient manner. We have launched a scheme called the Prime Minister Krishi Sinchai Yojana, which is an irrigation program, which has triple aims, namely creating new sources of water to bring additional area under irrigation, improved water use efficiency through adoption of micro irrigation systems, and more important is the participatory irrigation management and groundwater recharge to ensure its sustainability. ICRISAT, with its focus on its mandated semi-arid tropic crops, is our valued partner. We have been working together closely to release new technologies and demonstrate their adaptability by the farmers alongside building their capacities. I am happy that this international institute is hosting the Inter-Drought 5th conference over 5 days between today and 25th of February. The themes and parallel workshops and participation by international scientists, policymakers, and institutions will help in broadening the understanding of the issues and role of science and technology in meeting the civilizational challenge of climate change and its adverse impact on farmers and their welfare across the globe. Thank you for inviting me to the inaugural session, and it is my privilege to be a part of this mega science event. Thank you once again.
Thank you very much, sir. This was really wonderful. And we have mentioned inspirational address. So this is really inspiration that, well, how under the leadership of Secretary Patnaik Sahab, we are making the great progress in India. And as he mentioned, so he took these reins in his hands last year. And in 2016 alone, when he started that secretaryship for Government of India, India, who is to import 4 million ton pulses, and in 2015 they produce around 17 million ton. In just one year, the pulse production reached to 22 million metric tons. So congratulations to you, sir. And this is just one initiative, but there are many other initiatives that are coming under the leadership of Secretary Patnaik. And as you said, as you have seen, that he started from the DNA, and then talk started from the DNA, including all these biotechnology aspect, going all the steps, but in the end, farmers' welfare. So this is wonderful. And Dr. Sandhu and myself, we were talking, and we need your permission that the talk which you gave, this looks like this will be a great policy paper from the Government of India. So we would like to see that how we would like to move ahead. So again, thank you very much once again for accepting the invitation despite of your all busy schedule and to come here.